Good evening. I did a Google Hangout earlier about Guinness Nitro IPA, and I wanted to do an individual review of it where I can get a little bit more into detail about its qualities. But I wanted to take a moment and remind viewers who might not have been watching all my videos from the beginning that I originally started this channel because I wanted to get a Cicerone certification. And in order to do that, you need to be very well versed in beer styles. And so there were, when I was originally starting using the BJCP style guideline from 2012, I don't even know actually, hold on. I'll grab it because I got this whole pile of paperwork over here where it lives. Because I like filing paperwork. Geez, 2008, okay, because I wasn't sure entirely what the standard for a style was. And quite frankly, I'm a standards kind of girl, because experiences, sensual, sense-based experiences are very individual. And if we create policies and procedures, if you will, that kind of define these things with a baseline, then we can compare each other's opinions and experiences in a way that is actually meaningful. Because you can say, I like a beer or I don't like a beer, but it's hard for anybody else to interpret that as they will or will not like a beer. You watch enough of my beer review videos, you'll get a sense for the things that I do like, and you'll know whether or not you like those types of things too, and then you can start to take my opinion into heart. Either if I like a beer, you will stay away from it, or if I like a beer, you'll be like, you know, I totally got to try that because it's probably pretty good. And so by evaluating beers to standard, one, I'm evaluating them from a neutral standpoint, and because it's not really about whether or not I like them, it's whether or not they're good for that style. There are so many kinds of styles, different styles of beers. You know, in the BJCP 2008, I don't know if anybody's actually ever looked at this. I mean, there are 2 pages worth of categories of beers. And each of those categories is a very defined, distinct type of beer. And when you say, I have made an IPA, you know, and you bring it over to your local, you know, brew accessories place, they're going to say, let me taste your IPA. It should taste like an IPA. But we have to generally come to an agreement about what an IPA actually should taste like, look like, smell like, mouthfeel, etc. I mean, those are the qualities on which we judge a beer. So using a standard, such as the BJCP style guidelines, allows us to create a common language about beer. And these are the types of things that we're looking for when we drink a beer. Now, most of the time, my videos will include something to the effect of, I like this beer, or I don't like this beer, this is disgusting, what the hell is going on? And my clear subjective opinion will come through. However, that's not necessarily the spirit of tasting beers, because there are some styles of beers that I don't like, decidedly don't like, and tend to avoid. There are some names in beers that I decidedly don't like and I try to avoid. But that's based on my own judgments, and I don't want my judgments, quite frankly, to cloud my opinions. I think that we need to overcome our judgments. So that is one reason that I rely so heavily on the BJCP style guidelines, because if I'm out shopping for a beer or recommending a beer to somebody else, quite frankly, I want to be able to say, give me some examples of things that you like, and I can find some beers, Nats, that will be similar to that. Or, you know, what are the qualities about beers that you like? I can give you a couple examples of things that you might be interested in trying, because quite frankly, beer, even if you don't want to admit it, is a sensual experience. We're enjoying it for the flavor, for the mouthfeel, for the carbonation, and that's the reason that we share it. So that's my basis for using the BJCP style guidelines. that being said, um, don't come and hate watch my videos if you don't agree with my beer philosophy, because why? What's the point? But now on to the serious business of beer reviews. Let's evaluate this beer. So, what is this? 5 minutes in? 5 minutes, 25 seconds in, we're going to try Guinness Nitro IPA. Now, there's a couple reasons why I was excited in trying this. One, Guinness. Guinness is like my go-to beer. It's kind of like my first adult beer. You know, when I was underage, I had Mickey's, I had Old English, I had, you know, King Cobra, black. And when I got to choose my own beer, one of the first beers that I really, really enjoyed, because of the sensual experience that it was Guinness. It's beautiful to watch the cascade, and it has a pretty good flavor, and it's enjoyable, and it's filling, and I liked it a lot. So when I see a new beer come out by Guinness, I'm always interested in trying it. Reason one. Reason two. Nitrous. Nitro beers are amazing. I really like them. They're so velvety and creamy, and it really adds this depth of experience to drinking a beer that I wholeheartedly appreciate. So pretty much no matter what beer it is, if I come across it and it's in a nitro tap, I'm gonna try it. And actually, one of my most enjoyable memories of a nitro tap beer was when I had an orange cream ale done on a nitro tap. Now, the beer itself was so sweet and orangey. I mean, it was like an orange cream soda almost, that I didn't feel like I could drink another one of it. That experience was just fine on its own. But the experience of tasting it and feeling it was terribly enjoyable. And I really just like the experience of a nitro tap beer. So like I said, pretty much any beer I come across that's nitro tap, I'm like, hey, I want to try that. Like, it might just totally suck, but I'm down to give it a try. IPA. Now, when I first read this, I have to admit that I expected that Guinness was making an American style IPA, excuse me. And I appreciate the things that people do with American IPAs, but you know, sometimes it's a little intense for me. I really like the full spectrum of beer flavors, so beers that are more balanced as far as the complexity of their malts and the intensity of their hops. And I like it where it falls somewhere in the spectrum where there's, you know, good attention to both of those qualities. And then it has to be done in a way that is, I don't know, not awkward. I've had some beers that were just awkward, and it was just so much of one thing that it wasn't an enjoyable experience. And I think sometimes in the American way, if I can say so, that we like to push things to the envelope and do things in extreme and new and interesting and hard, fast, exciting, can't keep up with me kinds of ways. And so I thought, wow, a beer by Guinness, nitrous tapped, IPA. Cool, right? Let's give this a try. But then I realized before I did my beer hangout that it's an English IPA, and this totally made the experience even more exciting to me, because English IPA is one of my favorite styles, as much as American IPA tends to be a little intense for me. Because English IPAs have a lower hop profile. They're still very hop forward, but the hop flavors tend to be different for English hops. They're earthier, kind of herbal, sometimes grassy, and not so intense on my palate. Like, I sometimes when I drink American IPAs can like feel it in my sinuses. It's really intense. And so for me, like I said, beer is a sensual experience. That's a more pleasant experience. And so when I realized that it was an English IPA, I was like, totally, I am on this. So enough talking. I'm going to see if I can get the beer and my face in this video. Okay, and then I have, there's not really a good clear view on this glass. So since it's a nitrous beer, it has the widget in it. And when you take it out of the can, it's like this little ball that has nitrous gas in it that infuses the beer with this really great creamy mouthfeel. it creates a really nice head, and we'll see that in just one moment. But the beauty of that is in the cascade, and this is totally not the glass for that. Let me find the least encumbered side. So as we watch, you can see this kind of cascade where the beer liquid starts to form, and then we have this mix of gas, and then up to the top is going to float the head. So we'll just give it a couple minutes of watching. I don't want to hold this the whole time, but we'll watch it. Lovely cascade. I love you. Suppose I could have said all those other things while we were watching the cascade, but now we'll watch and give it its full due with silence. All right, so it's pretty much the point where it's just finishing off. There's still some cloudiness between the body of the beer and the head. So you can see kind of that we've got a nice, creamy, thick head here. I mean, it peaks. It's like whipped cream almost when you touch it. And so the retention is really good, and it's very distinct. And every time I see a beer that's on nitrous with the head, I always think of butter beer, because you make this soda with some flavors in it, and then you put whipped cream on top, and so it's just like this very distinct, separate entity floating on the top there. And that to me is what nitrous tapped nitrous beers look like. So I mean, there's the head up there, and it's just like hanging out, you know, an entity of its own. It doesn't even gives no care to what else is going on around it. So, pulling out my handy dandy 2015 newly released BJCP style guidelines. We are looking for a beer that is between 40 and 60 IBUs and 5 to 7.5 percent alcohol by volume. So we come in at 44 IBUs and 5.8% alcohol by volume. What I think is interesting about this beer is that it lists its hops: Admiral, Celia, Topaz, Challenger, and Cascade. I have never, and I meant to earlier, read up on Celia hops. I almost feel like I'm talking enough, and this video is going to be incredibly long. We might as well do it now. Celia. Hops. I guess that's important because nobody knows what I'm talking about otherwise. Okay. It's a Slovenian hop style, apparently, which is pretty cool. So used in lager style beers, so mild, and it says pleasant and hoppy, similar to Styrian, and excuse my mispronunciation. And so it's a mild kind of hops, and so I only know because the guys I do these beer reviews with do some good research of beers before we taste them, that they had 9 that they were looking at and ended up with 5 that they've decided to use, 3 of which were dry hopping, and so in the spirit of an IPA, it is hop forward, and so there are 3 dry hopped hops in this particular style. So blah, blah, blah about history. So anyway, having tried this, I already know the answers to all these questions, but aroma-wise, I get this, it's a very interesting aroma because it's kind of bready and malty and toasty, but it has this somewhat sour kind of quality to it. And I couldn't quite place it originally, and it has this earthy kind of thing going on. But definitely refreshing. Makes me so want to drink it. So unfortunately, this is seriously like one of the worst glasses to use. Dang you, Hulk, for being all over my glass. From my perspective, not yours, it's a beautiful amber color, and of course with the nitrous gas, it has this great off-white persistent head. We love that. And it doesn't look overly almost said hopped, doesn't look overly carbonated. So one of the other qualities of nitro beers that I like a lot is that kind of creaminess, and so it's not like biting carbonation, which I don't necessarily enjoy, and I don't want to be like 2 sips into a beer and have a big, huge, raunchy belch. I want to save that for like beer 3, and particularly when I'm not on the air. So those are qualities that I enjoy in beers. Flavor. There are a lot of things going on in this beer, and one of the reasons that my initial opinion was that I enjoyed it is that it reflects this spectrum of flavor that's possible, between light or no flavor to intense flavor. Oftentimes that intensity is likened with like burntness that you might get out of like a stout, a burnt kind of French roast quality, toasted coffee quality, or extreme bitterness like you might get out of a sour, to these flavors, to a watery style beer that don't have a lot of intensity and flavor. So that flavor spectrum occurs. And then somewhere on that continuum comes in malt and hops, it's not as beautiful as one straight line. But this beer really rings true for my sensibilities in that it creates this beautiful combination of the qualities of beers qualities on which we tend to judge beers. And so that's malt flavors and hop flavors. And when either one of those is extremely, and that is a key word, extremely dominant, I find it off-putting because I drink beer because I like all of the flavors that go into beer. And sometimes I want beers that have different flavors. And so I get oak-staved aged ales, or I get coffee ales, or I get vanilla bourbon ales, when I'm looking for something that kind of differs from those standards. But this beer offers very nicely a great combination of malt and hops. And while it's hop forward, you can totally get this hop out of it. There's this beautiful, complex caramel maltiness that goes below it that really supports that. And so, like I've said, and I don't even know at this point, out of my 200 something video reviews, this roller coaster of flavor. So you get this sweetness, this complexity, this toastiness, this breadiness, and then it jumps in. I have to actually take 3 separate flavors to distinctly describe each one. This hoppiness as you're breathing out that reflects what you're smelling in the aroma. So this grassiness, this earthiness, this herbaliness, this bitterness, that so well complements that other style. So it's like, or that the initial flavor. And so you get those two together, and you're like, wow, this is interesting. What's going on? And then you have a couple of breaths after you've had that beer, and those two very distinct parts of the beer flavor meld together. And that's what I'm always looking for, is that melding of flavors. And so do those two different distinct flavors come together in a way that is complementary and appealing. And I think that in this IPA, and again, this is not an American style IPA, it's an English IPA, so the hop styles are incredibly different. We get this beautiful combination of flavor that I really appreciate. And so we're looking for, in the English IPA style, a hop flavor that is medium to high with assertive hop bitterness. And so we're looking for flavor similar to the aroma, that's floral or spicy or citrus or grassy, really depending on the types of hops that are used. Malt flavor should be medium low to medium, and somewhat bready, biscuity, toasty, toffee, caramelly, depending again on the types of malts that you're using. So there could be some fruitiness, which I think more comes across in the aroma. There's this quality that's like a bright, fruity flavor, and I had likened it to grass earlier in my initial flavor taste of it, but maybe like nectarine, something that has like this little, you can feel it in your jaw, kind of, not even sourness, but this, I can't even describe that. It's a sensation. Like I said, it's a sensual experience. And it should be dry and have some lingering bitterness, which this beer does totally, and it's great. It's not harsh, it's not undrinkable. And then the balance is toward the hops, but the malt should still be noticeable in support. And I think that language there is incredibly important for this particular style, and then for the lineup of beers that I enjoy the most. That's what I'm always looking for. And I think they do a good job of that here. So, mouthfeel, this is going to be a full-bodied beer with the nitrous. It's foamy and creamy and smooth, and it's this full mouth experience, which is really great. Overall impression, it's definitely hoppy, albeit English hops, which I think that we need to make sure that we understand the difference between American and English hops, and then furthermore, appreciate the difference even between West Coast versus East Coast hopping. It's great. They did a really great job. It's really drinkable, and quite frankly, it's a nitro beer. So I'm like, hey, this is great. Let's try. I'm willing to give it a try. So while I'm judging this on the BJCP style guidelines for an English IPA, an English IPA does not usually include nitrous, and so technically this would be judged as a specialty beer. Specialty beers are based on their base category, and then taking any of these extra flavors or qualities or characteristics into account. So based on that, to reiterate, the whole point of judging it on a style is to see if this beer is in fact what they said it would be, and then of course my opinion of it, which I think I've made abundantly clear as we went through aroma and flavor and mouthfeel. So it's very well done. It's very enjoyable. I'm super excited that I got my hands on it. It's hard to find in California, or at least in the Bay Area. I've had a hard time getting my hands on it, and I stopped at Bevmo, which they have everything, and it's actually listed on their website right now as sold out, and there were 2 6-packs available at the Orinda location, which is between work and my home. You're like, you sure you don't need another one? Which maybe I should have taken them up on that. But in California right now, this beer is available for 11, and I didn't write it down. 11, I have it up here. $11.29 for a 6-pack, plus the California redemption value of 30 cents, because you're paying 5 cents per can or bottle toward recycling, plus tax. So I ended up paying like $12.30 or $12.60 or something like that for this 6-pack, which I think for a 6-pack is overpriced, especially since these cans come in at 11.2 ounces, I do believe. Let me just verify that that is in fact the case. We said it earlier. Okay, yeah, 11.2 ounces. So 11.2 ounces of beer, for what essentially works out to a $12 6-pack. That's a little hard to swallow, but the experience for me was definitely worth it, and I'm glad that I tried it. And I will probably share it with my friends in the future, just for the sake. I'll be like, hey, there's a new Guinness beer. It's exciting. You should try it. But one of the reasons that I was super excited about this, if I can figure out which direction the video goes, is that it's part of the Brewers Project. And so what they're trying to do is experiment with so it says, on a quest to explore new recipes, reinterpret old ones, and collaborate freely to bring exciting beers to life. And that to me is really exciting, because there are so many styles and ingredients and approaches and water types and fermentation vessels and yeasts. I mean, holy moly, are there yeasts? Each combination of those, which potentially is infinite, creates a unique and interesting beer experience. And for me, it's always interesting to try a new beer, even if I'm like, nah, not for me, or Bluck, I totally hate this. And I appreciate when I hear other people who say, you know what, actually, I really liked this because of this, and this. Or, you know what, that's totally my style, so I pretty much dig whatever comes out there. And that, my friends, is why I do beer videos. So, for my longest beer review video ever that got a little political, thank you so much for watching. If this is something that you have tried, please share with me down below what your thoughts were on it and then where you were able to find it, because sometimes people are watching my videos from areas outside of the Bay Area and need to know where to find these beers. Thank you again, and I appreciate everybody who watches my videos. Have a good night.